Okay. All right. So we are live. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our audience. We're going to get started. We have some amazing guests today. We'll be touching on the eviction moratorium and some other things related to that with rental assistance. And I think it's going to be a really, really exciting interview today. So, good morning. You're watching our weekly Sunday morning show, Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. We simulcast on Facebook and YouTube, so as you know, please share us with your friends, your family, your neighbors, and make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, follow us, etc. You know what to do. And tune in every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So we have two really amazing guests with us. We have Susie Shannon, and we have Representative Jimmy Gomez of California District 34. So I'm in Atlanta. I just got here last night, almost midnight, and I'm not quite unpacked yet, so I don't have Susie's bio in front of me. So Carlos, I'm just going to hand it to you. Go ahead and give us a wonderful introduction for Susie, and then we'll give her the floor.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would like to say thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's always good to be here and to be able to share with you some of the important issues that we are facing and that are affecting a lot of the people out there. Today's guest, of course, Congressman Jimmy Gomez from the 34th District. Amazing guy. He's been showing up to our food bank here in Los Angeles, and I see him very active, which I really enjoy to see people, our representatives, be active and participate and what have you. So we want to greet him and want to say thank you for being with us. But Susie Shannon, another powerful voice here in Southern California, actually all of California. She's well known for her advocacy on housing. Um, Housing is a human right. She's the director for that organization and just doing an amazing work, writing policy and always getting involved with the issues that are affecting so many people, millions of people, and countless of unhoused people that are facing really dire situations out there. So powerful voices today. I cannot wait to be able to hear from them and ask a few questions. But thank you and welcome again. Uh,
All right, thank you. Susie, I'll give you just a moment to highlight anything special or in particular about your bio, your career, and then we'll move on to introducing the representative. So please,
Sure.
Susie.
First of all, thank you both so much for having me on the show. It's great to be back again. And I just, I work with our unhoused community. I've been working with our unhoused community since 2005. I'm also formerly unhoused from when I was a kid. And I just want to say that right now we are on a precipice right now in terms of people really struggling. We had, because of COVID, a lot of people who were out of work. So that put a lot more people in danger of losing their housing. And so the rental assistance that we see coming down from the federal government and from the state of California is really key to keeping people in their homes. And so we need to be ever vigilant about making sure that that money makes it down to the renters and as quickly as possible. And that we have actually, a plan for affordable housing and for housing our unhoused community. We have over 500,000 people across the country who are unhoused right now. And we have over 150,000 who are unhoused in the state of California. So we definitely want to make sure that we are focusing on people who are both struggling and at the very low income level, because so many people right now would be facing eviction. There are a lot of people facing eviction, but there would be so many more without the government having stepped in to provide that kind of assistance. So I'm really happy to be on the show today and talk about all these issues.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Susie, for making time today. And okay, so let me go ahead and see. I have your official bio represented, so I'm just going to highlight some things here. So you you're California's 31st congressional district representative, which is one of the most diverse and culturally rich districts in the country. And you currently serve as the vice chair of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. You sit on the House Committee on Ways and Means. You serve as an assistant whip for the House Democratic Caucus. You're a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. The representative is a member of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and also the Future Forum. Before that, the Representative Gomez served 4.5 years in the California State Assembly, where he served as chair of the Assembly of Appropriations Committee. In the Assembly, he distinguished himself as a proven national champion of paid family leave and combating climate change. We thank you for that. He became a key figure in authoring landmark legislation to address public health, environmental justice, water conservation, access to education, civic engagement, campaign finance disclosure, LGBTQ rights, and affordable housing. The congressman attended community college, Riverside Community College. That's amazing. He received a bachelor's in political science from UCLA and a master's in public policy from Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. He currently resides with his wife, Mary, and dog Austin in Eagle Rock, California, and he is a fan of the Dodgers, and who isn't? So thank you so much, Representative, for being with us today. You have an amazing, amazing background, and we are very proud of you for all that you've accomplished educationally as well, especially starting at the community college and making your way through some of the most distinguished universities in the country. That's no easy feat, especially coming from our Hispanic community in California. That's something that we're very proud of. So I want to give you also an opportunity, Representative, to share anything else that I didn't mention that you'd like to highlight right now.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And just that when I approach politics and policymaking, it's from a very personal place. It's what I experienced growing up, and then at the same time, putting myself into the shoes of others. So my parents are immigrants from Mexico. 4 of my siblings were born there, and I was just fortunate enough to be born here, as well as my brother Javier, and that. But everything that I experienced growing up, watching them work 4 to 5 jobs a week to make ends meet, barely, not having health insurance to an extent where I got pneumonia and ended up in the hospital for a week. When we got displaced from our first house that we were renting in Brea, California, and we had to move to an empire, all of that kind of makes me who I am, how I approach it, policy. And the way I see it is everything I do is to try to help the folks that are most disadvantaged, but also changing how we do it. And that's the idea of equity. The people who have the least deserve the most help. And that's what I've been fighting for since I've been in Congress. And I've learned a lot, gotten better, but I'm not, you would look at my going to community college and thinking it was all easy, and going to Harvard. I had to learn the basics from English, math, to even typing. When I got to UCLA, I couldn't type, and I had to take, Mavis Bacon and teach myself how to type. So everything I do is through the lens of working class people and how they struggle and how programs at the state or the federal level work or don't work for them, and what else we can do to make their life a little easier. So that's really what I want to tell people, is that everything I do is from that perspective. And if I don't have that perspective, from a different perspective, I try to put myself in other people's shoes and empathize and think about what they're going through. And that's how I make a lot of my decisions.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Representative. I'm having a little bit of trouble with your stream. It's just a little cutting in and out. I'm not sure if anybody else is, but I think it's okay for the most part. Yes. So, Carlos,
okay.
Before we go on to the bigger discussion, maybe you would like to tell us a little bit about. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to try to move spots so I can improve my connectivity.
Okay. Okay. Sure. No problem. Right? Thank you.
Okay.
So, Carlos, while we wait for the representative to hop on, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to know him? You mentioned he's been attending the food banks.
Right. So Congress reached out to us, um, during the pandemic, wanted to get involved and wanted to see how we can help support the efforts that we're doing. Not only that, but he was very interested in a lot of the issues that we have been fighting for. So I got an opportunity to meet with him and to be able to engage conversation. I say difficult because sometimes we don't understand what some of the representatives deal with, and they don't understand the stuff that we're dealing with. So it's one of to be open minded, be able to not be judgmental, and for me specifically, when I approach any politician, regardless of who they are, whether someone that I admire or somebody that I may not consider him or her a someone that actually cares about the issues that we care about, I approach it in a professional level and be able to with an open mind, to be able to understand what they are saying. It's important for us to listen. It's important for us to pay attention to what's happening. And one of the things that move me right now is, as we all saw, the moratorium came to an end at the national level, the federal level moratorium on renters and what have you. And people got really bothered by it because it literally will affect millions of people, literally millions of people. And we're already on a crisis, a housing crisis, and we have a homeless crisis that is beyond anything we have seen. We didn't need, to end the moratorium. We needed to continue the protections and do everything that we can to protect the families. That still a lot of people are not able to go back to work. So I reached out actually to Congressman Gomez, and he agreed to be with us so that we can talk a little bit about his involvement in this most recent protest at the steps of the Capitol. I thought that was a very important steps that some of the members of Congress took, especially Cori Bush. She immediately went out there and set camp. And next thing I know, I start seeing other members of Congress, including Congressman Gomez. So, we wanted to hear more about this. We wanted to see where Congressman Gomez is with this, and perhaps give us a little glimpse at some of the that we really don't know about, because there's a lot of stuff that most of the time we have no idea that is happening, because the media only gives us part of the story, or we hear in social media just part of the story. We want to be able to understand and know what are some of the challenges that a representative have to deal with, especially when it comes to this issue that is we know that there is some powers out there that don't want to see protections for tenants or homeowners. They want to be able to kick them out, but so they dealing with a big situation that most of us have no idea what goes on in Congress. And Jamie, this is why um, wanted to ask you about this and your personal um, view of why you got involved on this latest protest at the steps of the Capitol.
Yeah, and before we get into the protest, I would love it if the representative could kind of set the background story for what led to the protest too, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what members of Congress were able to do running up to the vote that happened, and then leading to the demonstration on the steps with Representative Cori Bush, yourself, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Ilhan Omar. So, Representative Gomez, if possible, could you kind of set the stage for what was going on with the expiration of the moratorium?
No, great question. So we have to go back from the beginning of the pandemic, when everything was shutting down, and people couldn't go to work. And we started kind of taking steps to protect renters, homeowners, business owners. And we started working on a variety of different options. Part of it is we tried to first get into the Democrats tried to, in the early days of the pandemic, try to get money into the CARES Act for rent relief. We couldn't do that because there was the Republicans, you still had a Republican Senate, and you also still had a Republican president. So we couldn't do that. So we introduced our own version of the HEROES Act, where we did ask for, I believe it was $75 billion in rent relief. And that was something that was always a priority for Democrats. It was a priority for myself, Maxine Waters, because we knew that we had to keep people in their apartments, because if or houses or whatever they're living, because if they ended up on the streets, it'll cost a lot more. They'll be emotionally and economically devastated. So we saw it as it was important that we ended up getting that money, but we didn't end up, and other members had different bills. Ilhan Omar had a rent cancellation bill, and that bill itself, it doesn't just cancel rent. If you actually look at the fine details, it's a rent relief bill. So it cancels rent and then pays the landlords or the mortgage companies for whatever is back owed. So it's the same concept as rent relief, but it does it in the front end versus the back end. But either way, it's still the same result, which is it helps people stay in their homes by giving them the money to stay whole and pay off the rent. So we didn't get that. The HEROES Act stalled, but after the election, we were able to do a appropriations, and that appropriations included $25 billion in rent relief. So that's how we were pushing, and we're pushing for the eviction moratorium. But as the new year started, chaos. I mean, as you all know, January 6th happened. There was an insurrectionist mob by the Trumpers who tried to overturn the election. That was, we were doing with that at the same time. Joe Biden was getting elected, and then we were seeing that first eviction moratorium expiration date coming in the end of January. So myself and Ayanna Pressley actually wrote a letter with members to extend that, asking Biden to extend that moratorium, which he ended up doing. Then Cori Bush and others also did another letter in May for another extension. And then myself, Cori Bush, and Ayanna Pressley did another letter to extend. We led 41 members asking President Biden to extend it one last time, or at least one additional time. And he did, only through the end of July. So then we get the Supreme Court decision back that says Kavanaugh said, well, he's only voting for it because of he didn't want to strike it down, but he was saying that he believed that the CDC went beyond its authority. So in the end, we didn't believe that was the case, and we kept on behind the scenes trying to put pressure on the White House. Myself, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, other progressives, constantly putting pressure. And then we were in talks with them. And then on July 28th, myself, Cori Bush, and Ayanna Pressley did a press statement that called them out, said, extend it one last time in order to protect the people. There's a rise in COVID cases. The pandemic isn't over. People are still struggling. People are still hurting. And they were pissed. The White House was upset. They called my office. They called Ayanna's office. I'm not sure if they called Cori's office, but they called us trying to get us to back down. And that's what most people don't know, that part of the story, that they were trying to tell us to back down. And because they were getting pressure, they put out the statement like a day later saying it was up to Congress, even though they had never told us in the whole month that we had to do it through congressional action. So Pelosi, of course, she is going to try to do something. Of course, she was going to try to do something, and so was Maxine Waters. But that was kind of like we were trying to get the votes. But either way, you were still going to hit the Senate because you needed 60 votes in the Senate to get it done. So most likely, in order to get it done, an eviction moratorium extension or grant the federal government the authority, you need to do it in a must-pass piece of legislation so you can force people to vote for it, especially the senators, to get it done. So it was always going to be difficult, and it was a battle. You had, which I found out later, is that you had some folks in the realtors who were putting pressure on members, especially the moderate members, to not vote for an extension. And I guess that they were pushing pressure on the White House. Pelosi, I think, so in the end, they tried some last minute legislative maneuvers. It didn't work through the legislative process. So Cori Bush and Ocasio-Cortez tried to object for the House going on recess. And that's when it kind of started. And later that night on Friday, we were kind of in contact, and we're going to write another letter. Actually, we're in the works. Our chiefs of staff and our leg teams were in the works writing a second letter to Biden saying, no, you do have the authority, because the conditions on the ground when it comes to the pandemic have changed. Delta is increasing. There's a health crisis. You can do it. And the way we thought about it, Donald Trump introduced how many pieces, like how many times did he introduce a Muslim ban or some kind of ban through executive order that was considered unconstitutional? He just kept on going back and back and back until he found a route. We're like, just give it one more shot. We thought he can do that. So Cori ended up, I did a recording that Friday night from the steps of the Capitol. About an hour or two later, Cori goes out there, and I didn't know she was out there until next morning when I was waking up to go and catch my flight, because my mother-in-law has dementia, and I have to come home on the weekends to help out. So I came back. We sent out that second letter on Saturday, and to the White House, and that was the letter that, the original letter, 41 members signed onto it. This one, it was only like 8 of us. It was myself, Ayanna, Cori Bush, myself, Alexandria Cortez, Jayapal, who else?
Bowman?
Talib. Oh, yeah, Bowman, Talib, and Amanjari. So basically, the squad, myself, and the chair of the Progressive Caucus, Jayapal. So I left, and we were in touch the whole time, and we were making the argument to Pelosi, put pressure on the White House, Like, they're trying to throw it to us when they never gave us notice. So we were like, you got to put pressure on the White House. So if you notice on Saturday, her position switched. She actually put out statements, and then she started working the phones to the White House and getting other caucuses to weigh in. The Congressional Progressive Caucus was there every step of the way with us. Then you had the Hispanic Caucus weigh in. You had the Asian Caucus. You also had the Black Caucus. So different, and then you had the different committee chairs start weighing in that no, the White House can do this. So and I told my chief of staff that I was flying back on Sunday. I was going to fly back then Monday morning as soon as I can get a flight. So I flew back first thing, took an early morning flight, walked to the steps, and met with saw Cori, Mondre, and Alex, and we were just started strategizing there. But the behind the scenes work, right? The legislative touch is calling them and saying, hey, you guys better do something. And also, my chief told the White House, this is a big deal for the member. The member's been working on this from the beginning of the year, every extension. He has one of populations of individuals living on the streets than anywhere in the country. This would be devastating, even though it doesn't impact our California, because we have local protections. We have to care about what happens to people in other states and what kind of ripple effect it could have, right, across the country when it comes to California. So we never changed our idea that they could do this. The White House could do this. I know that in the legislative process or in politics, you try one thing, and if it doesn't work, you try another thing. But in the end, we pivoted back to putting pressure on the White House. And Cori, I'll give it to her. She was not, because she experienced homelessness herself, being unhoused and sleeping in her car with her kids. that gave her a motivation that I think a lot of people don't have. And so she didn't give up, so we didn't give up, and that was kind of like, and that's the way it always gets. Politics is tiring. You're always working with your allies to keep you motivated, to keep that extra fight. So I was happy to go back, and then I had made up my mind I was going to stay the night on the steps, and I thought I could sleep. So Alex and I were going to stay there, and I found out, oh, they're not letting you sleep on the stairs. You can't even bring a chair. You have to be like, just be on the stairs and not sleep the whole night. So myself, there was great activists. They're awesome, that showed up from all over, a lot from New York, but we had some from the Midwest, staffers show up, and we just hung out on the steps, and we were kept on working behind the scenes to put pressure. And the way I kind of just we kind of deliver the message is, this is not going away, and it's only going to get bigger if you don't act. And here's the thing, people in some states, they can kick people out in a matter of days. In Florida, 2 weeks, beginning of the eviction process to the very end, 2 weeks is what I was told. So it can move fast, and that's why every day mattered. Every single day mattered. And then we got word that so it was, love the activists that were there with us. And then we were there on Tuesday. We started getting word that it was coming. We gave Cori, so I'd say that we tagged in. We let Cori take a break. And this is why I say, like, in any kind of movement, in any kind of politics, you have to rely on your allies in order to, sometimes you got to just sleep. You got to take a break. And she left, but she was a relentless voice. And then different electeds started coming out. Cory Booker. Who else? Cory Booker was there. Alex Padilla, Markey. What's that?
Bernie Sanders showed
Bernie
up.
Sanders.
Too,
right? Yeah. Bernie Sanders showed up. Schumer showed up, which is I was like surprised that he was there, but he showed up, and he was making phone calls. We had different members of Congress. Mark Takano came out, in support, but so did Jim McGovern, Adam Schiff, different people. So when this starts picking up its own momentum, that they're going to have to do something. And they get the White House pivoted quicker than I thought, but it was it shows the power of keeping the public's attention on an issue, right? Making them focus. And listen, I just read an article in Politico that the realtors were behind the scenes trying to kill this eviction moratorium for months. They never bothered, they never bothered with me. I'm not sure if they did. They came to my office or anything, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, in the end, like, politics is about helping the people you represent, or helping people, period. And at least from my perspective, and hanging out with Cori, it was emotional, because you can feel her pain. When we started getting word about that this was working, we all got a little bit really emotional, because it's rare that you engage in these actions and you can turn it around. But you know what? We have power now, because there's a lot of people in the streets, but we have more organizers in Congress than ever before. I come from the labor movement, and I protested Governor Walker in Wisconsin, who was trying to take away labor rights. I've protested even Dianne Feinstein when I was part of labor, when it came to the Employee Free Choice Act, right? Remember the pro-union act. So protesting, folks, is not something that, for me, that is something that I've never done. But it's something that we done, even when I slept on the border during the Trump era, to make sure that the migrants have their rights respected. So it's good to be in Congress with activists, with people who are not afraid to go protest. But there have been what I try to remind people, there have been activists in Congress before. John Lewis, remember, he led the sit-in on the floor. He's been arrested how many times? Real, not like the photo op arrest, but the real arrest, right? He got beat up for his ideals and for the country. So, but there's just a lot more of us, and and because of that, when somebody engages and starts an action like Cori, there's not as much hesitation as in the past.
Great.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and throw this to Carlos and see. Go ahead, Carlos. Go ahead and.
Yes, I wanted to bring in Susie, and I know that although she's here in California, everything is connected because what happens in Washington does affect our states, and as you say, Jimmy, we have a crisis here in California with the unhoused. Your district has their share of people that are struggling out there, and there's many people that are uh, facing eviction. They just people are scared. People don't know what's going to happen, and that was the thing that why
Yeah.
people got really afraid when they heard that the moratorium was not extended, because everybody all of a sudden like, whoa, what are we going to do, and begin to
Yeah.
to talk to each other. But Susie, you this is pretty much down your plate, because you deal with this, and you monitor all this stuff, and tell us a little bit on your thoughts on all this, and how it also affected you, and the decisions that you had to make.
Sure. Well, it is actually all connected, as we know. And I do want to point out, because this was sort of one of the arguments that we made to create the DNC Poverty Council, which is that someone's lived experience should also be taken into account when we're looking at candidates. Because you can see with Cori Bush's background, with Congressmember Jimmy Gomez's background, these backgrounds do help inform how people fight for the things that people really, really need. And so I do want to applaud the Congress member for him championing this issue, but also you can see, like with Cori Bush being formerly unhoused and having that lived experience, the understanding of how dire the situation is. So I do monitor this because there's a tremendous amount of pressure from the real estate industry to end these eviction moratoriums. Just here in Los Angeles, where I live, the Apartment Owners Association of Greater Los Angeles has a lawsuit against the city of LA on its eviction moratorium. So we see that when things at the federal level start to kind of fall apart, or an eviction moratorium isn't extended, what happens is that it reverberates across the state, and then into the local government to say, okay, well, maybe we should be ending these eviction moratoriums, and maybe that's fine. And thankfully, the CDC did extend the eviction moratorium to October 3rd, but it is being challenged in court right now by the real estate industry, who now has gone into Washington to a Washington federal judge, and is basically making the case to vacate this order. And so we need to remain ever vigilant. It's wonderful to have, champions in Congress who are willing to go to the bat for people who really are facing dire circumstances. And then you can see also what's playing out here, as Biden mentioned in his speech a few days ago, which is that $46 billion has been distributed to states, but only a very small fraction, only about $3 billion, has made it to tenants and landlords. So we had a press conference on Friday here in Los Angeles. Our council member here, Kevin De Leon, who is also our former Senate pro tem, introduced an ordinance basically saying that our housing department needs to distribute this money by October 1st, because over $230 million has come to the city to be distributed to tenants and landlords for back rent, and only $35 million has been distributed. So this is also creating somewhat of a sense of urgency. And you have to remember too, these rent relief programs are emergency programs for people who have suffered losses due to COVID. And so when it's an emergency program, obviously you think that the money is going to be distributed immediately, but our application deadline here in LA ended April 30th, and we still only have a very small fraction of that rent relief that's been distributed. So it's creating a protracted period of uncertainty for our tenants and landlords. And it's, obviously you don't want that tension. I'm a single mom who lives in Los Angeles. And I can tell you that, if I were behind in rent, because I'm a renter as well, I would be extremely stressed out. And as it is, we have like over 50% of our population who are rent burdened, and people are already making decisions on whether to buy food or pay rent. And then when you look at the situation where 11.4 million people across the United States are behind in rent, and 900,000 in California are behind in rent. You can see that this is an extremely dire situation, which requires multiple extensions of our eviction moratorium, but also a sense of urgency from the local municipalities to get this money out to people who need it.
Wow. I mean, so many things are happening, and time flies, so we have to be on top of this. What are some of the things that you are seeing, Susie, that are not working or that are moving too slow? What are some of the challenges when people are going out there and fill out an application? Is it too confusing? Is it too much paperwork? What are you hearing?
Yeah, so I've actually helped people with their paperwork apply for these programs, and it was extremely complicated. And it got so complicated that we actually had to call the agency in order to get us through the whole application process, because it was very confusing. So there are very complicated, confusing applications. And when I say this, I don't want anyone to get discouraged from applying. It's very, very important that you apply for these programs. The statewide program, which is Housing is Key, and you can go to housing.ca.gov to apply in California. That program is still open and you can apply. And this is for back rent and for utilities. So it's important for people to understand if they're behind in their utilities, they can also apply. And then it's sort of a tiered program. So if you're at 30% of the area median income, you would be prioritized. So the people who have the least amount of money coming in would be prioritized, and then it goes up from there. But I encourage everyone to apply. The city program for the city of Los Angeles, for anyone who's watching from LA, is actually closed. But Kevin De Leon put in a motion on Monday for that to be, Friday for that to be reopened. So we do want to reopen for a few reasons. First of all, more money will be coming from the state to the local municipalities in California. But also we want to know how many people out there are struggling. And this helps us track how really serious the problem is, because only about 25,000 people in the city of Los Angeles applied for rental assistance, and the people who needed it the most, who are at 30% of the area median income and below, which is very, very low income, didn't apply in the amount that we would expect. So we know that the information didn't get down to them quick enough to apply. So it's really important to reopen these programs, and also to keep trying to get the word out to people who are in need before they get evicted.
Margaret, I just wanted to say that for those of you that are watching right now, we are going to have another guest with us in a few minutes. We have Olympian gold medalist Cindy Pound that will be joining us, and it's going to be very exciting. But do you have another question for the?
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Yes, no problem. So I do want to go back and touch on a little bit about what happened at the national level, but there is something that I want to bring up to both of you from a comment from one of our viewers. And they posted that they're able to pay their mortgage, but not their lights and gas. They're worried DWP and SoCal Gas will cut them off. What can they do in order to keep their lights and gas on?
There is utility assistance through the state. I'm not sure if that extends to homeowners. It likely does. And so I would encourage them to go to housing if they're in California. I know that a lot of your viewers are from California, but also from other places. If they're in California, they can go to housing.ca.gov and go into the program for utility assistance and see if they qualify.
Okay, perfect. So program for utilities assistance, housing.ca.gov. So for that viewer, I hope that you can get some relief with that very soon. So Congressman, I want to point out that what you did and what the members of the squad did was a profoundly big deal. Like, this is not something to be understated. And I mean, last week I was actually feeling quite cynical about the electoral politics. And when I saw that Cori Bush actually did this and sat out on the steps overnight with her staff, and that the representative Ocasio-Cortez brought a busload of people up from New York City, and I recognize a lot of faces from there because I used to live there, and I still kind of keep track of all of the progressives in politics there. You know, this gave me an ounce of hope, and I don't want to be cynical about this, because I think there's a lot of cynicism, especially amongst my generation, that we feel because we don't see a lot of action happening fast enough, and we know we're running out of time with climate change. But I do want to make sure that you know that what you did was really important, and we're very happy that you did that and that you stood out there with Representative Bush. So I just want you to know that we love to see it, and we love to see more of it. So please keep up the good work in that regard. And I would also like to know, has the pandemic shaped at all your political perspective? Have you shifted on any issues since then? Like, do you feel even stronger about helping working class people, like with climate change, the Green New Deal, and things like that?
What the pandemic did was really reinforce a lot of ideas I already had and beliefs that I already had. In California, I restructured paid family leave. And the reason why is that when you looked at the program by itself, paid family leave, people could take 6 weeks off for 55% of their salary. And we were on the forefront, passed in 2002, started implementing in 2004. But when you look at who was actually using it, that program didn't work for working class people. The people that used it the most were the ones that are making $80,000 or more a year. And that's what I've always found with a lot of government programs, is that they don't work for working class people, right? If so, the whole 55% of your salary, well, my parents struggled on 100% of their salary when they were working 4 to 5 jobs a week. So what makes anybody think that a working class person can take off 6 weeks at 55%? They can't. And what I believed is that people are getting tired of looking around and seeing that things aren't getting drastically better, especially when we're investing all this money. So what I did is that people who make less deserve more help. So if you're a working class person below 80,000, you should be getting 70, 80, 90% of your salary, not a smidge where you can't actually use the program. Same thing with a lot like the child tax credit. When we just passed a refundable, a monthly, we changed it to make it first, everybody can get it under a certain income. That's number one. Before, you had to owe taxes. You had to owe money. But a lot of working class people that need the help don't owe taxes. So they weren't getting that benefit. So then most working class people can't wait till the end of a year or the following year in order to get the money. They need it now. They need it for monthly bills and help now. So making it payable by monthly installments is huge. So taking those ideas, the pandemic, all it just showed is that the system, what we always thought was more inequitable than ever before, a lot of barriers, who was getting infected, who was dying, who needed more help. You look at the working class areas, you look at the brown and black areas, the indigenous areas. So you start looking at all that. The pandemic just reinforces it. What it really did also, though, one thing I do believe that our social safety net, because the nature of work has changed, a lot of people getting pushed over to become independent contractors. They're outside of the system that was in place when people had brick and mortar or W-2 employment. So they're left out of that social safety net. The people that work part-time jobs, they're Uber drivers, stuff like that, even though I believe that those jobs shouldn't be independent contractors. They should be W-2. So we got to build a new safety net program, a new program for a modern workforce and a modern economy. And that means that, yeah, government has to be even more involved, right? When it comes to unemployment, has to be bigger and has to be more nimble. The pandemic showed that it wasn't quick enough. It took too long, and everything was dependent. So like one of the things I'm working on is automatic checks would be what they call economic stabilizers. So when the unemployment gets above 7%, the treasury will be able to send out automatic stimulus checks to people instead of waiting for congressional approval. But we're trying to get that in. Unemployment needs to be restructured. So we're looking at all of it because the system, the safety net, has too many holes in it now, especially when it comes to pandemics, right? There will be another pandemic just because they're becoming more and more frequent, these viruses. So we got to be ready. But yeah, it did change things for me when it comes to how big and how bold we have to go. And I think that doing a complete restructuring of the U.S. social safety net is essential.
Which also
Critical.
including medical, correct? And that's something that a lot of people
What's that?
Also including Medicare for all. That's one of the big ones that
really
affect the lack of being able to have access to.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And we're like, I'm a co-sponsor of the Medicare for All, but now I haven't announced it yet, but I'm working on another Medicare bill where we make it, for now, this is when you try one thing, you can't do it, but even though that's still your main goal, you try other things. One of them is we're trying to make sure that Medicare is an option that people can buy into, right? That people on the exchanges and through their employer can buy into. We're calling it, it's the Choose Medicare Act. And that's because we do believe Medicare is a great system. It's it has the highest popularity ratings, and if everybody else could have access to it, I think we would be better off, and it would be able to compete against these other private plans.
Absolutely. Well, I think we need to bring Cindy Brown in before we run out of time, and would love to continue this discussion with you, Representative Gomez. There's so much here to touch on with Medicare and everything else going on with the internal party politics, trying to get these legislations passed. So I hope that we can have you back again at some point to just really talk shop with you about all of this.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And in the end, it's interesting. Ayanna Pressley said once, somebody asked her who's in the squad, and she said the squad is big, right? And I think that's what everybody has to just remind, that we're all part of this bigger squad, from the grassroots to the original four and everybody in between. And the fights we fight, inside, outside, it's meant to get shit done so that people have a better life.
Right.
So I appreciate all of you for doing your activism. Susie Shannon is going to be helping me with the Renters' Rights Workshop. So thank you guys so much for the invitation, and have a great rest of your show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Congress.
Have a great Sunday.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Susie, thank you so much for all that information. I definitely very interested to hear more on the activities that you are putting together, especially when it comes down to being able to educate the general public, and let us know how we can help, because we want to make sure that the people that are not hearing the messages, they need to hear it. People that are not getting the help, they need to get the help. So anything that we can do to be that voice or that channel so that others can see the work that you guys are doing, please let us know.
I will, absolutely. And thank you again so much for having me on the show.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Susie. Thank you so much. So now, go ahead, Carlos.
yeah, I'm so sorry. Anything additional before we go? Because I know
Oh,
that.
I think she just hopped off.
Okay, that's fine.
That's all right.
Yeah,
We can always have her back on, but we really would love to spend some time with Cindy Brown. With Cindy Brown, thank you so much for being with us. And Joan Jackson are they also your attorney, or who is this person that just hopped on?
yeah.
Carlos is.
Me? Hi.
Hi.
And we have Joan Jackson here too. Hello.
Hello.
All right. So
So
on Cindy, I think she dropped, but since we're gonna be waiting for her to hop on, maybe you can introduce yourself and to the public, and welcome to Stand Up Fight Back, and we love to have Cindy, and hopefully she hops on soon.
no, Cindy's here. Do you not see her?
No, I don't see her.
Oh no, she's here. She's here. She's right in the big screen.
No,
No, that's me. That's Ray.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
yeah, she put
Okay,
yeah. 'Cause she
I've never met Cindy Brown, so I have no idea what I'm looking for. I'm so sorry. Okay, so you're Ray. You're Ray, and there's Joan, and so we don't have Cindy. Okay. I was so confused. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I'm so
So
sorry.
maybe
I mean,
wanna-
I could stand in for you.
Oh well, you're just as lovely. Both of you are just as lovely people. So
And are we-
okay,
Imperial?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
James Imperial? Is he on the call? Is he
I
scheduled?
don't.
No, I don't see him.
Okay.
Well, maybe we could get a little bit of background on the situation while we wait for Cindy, for the real Cindy to show up.
Oh, looks like we lost Joan.
Oh my.
Oh dear. So
sorry, you asked me a question?
Joan's back. Joan gets to start. Hi, Joan.
Okay, Joan. Okay, Joan, let's put you here in the screen. All right, so please, let's get a little bit of background on what's going on here with Cindy, and hopefully she will hop on with us.
Okay. Well, Cindy's case started literally 17 years ago when someone reached an agreement with her to kind of like be a manager and got her signature and access to her information. And they falsified a loan against her property. And despite the fact that the woman who went into the bank and got the loan was a white woman, and it said it clearly on the paperwork, no
Oh my
one in
gosh.
or in law enforcement was willing to treat her like she was a victim of a crime. And I think about $800,000 was taken out against her home. And she fought. I have documents showing where she's, gone to different agencies, law enforcement agencies, trying to get relief from this fraud that she was victimized by. And no one seemed to be able to do anything. And so, of course, it progressed to going into a lawsuit. Cindy's fighting for her title. And everyone is treating it like, well, you got the loan and we can't do anything about the fraud, so that's too bad. And one of her attorneys, James Imperial, made a really good analogy. It's like if someone stole your bike and someone else had it, if the police found it, the person in possession of it would be in possession of stolen property. They would strip them of the property and return it to you. However, with a house, that doesn't seem to be treated the same way. Someone can steal your house and they say, well, that's just too bad. And Cindy also had 4 different sets of attorneys that she hired. She literally liquidated all of her assets to pay for legal counsel. And at every point, at critical points of her litigation, they abandoned her. Now, I don't know if they were pressurized by someone, but I know at one point when I was helping her, they tried to get rid of me as well. So the court, the lawyers, it seems to be like I don't want to say conspiracy, because the fact of the matter is she's been litigating for 17 years and ultimately was stripped of her house despite being a victim of a crime and having all the documents to prove it. So this whole system has worked against her. And the fact that she managed to stay in her house for over 16 years while it was going on is a testament to her fortitude, her stamina, and her commitment for justice, not only for herself, but also for other people.
Jane, I'd like to
There's
mention that Cindy Brown is a gold medalist. She is an Olympian. She won a gold medal in basketball. She is someone that represented the United States, and she did so well and has always stood up uh, for everyone. And in this case, she ran into some very bad things that now she's houseless. Pretty much, she doesn't own the house anymore, and this is why we wanted to have her on the show and, and introduce you to her for the audience, because it is important to know that as a man, she should have to be going through this. You know, it is insanity about anything else. The way Cindy Brown has been treated and the position that she has been left, pretty much living out of her car and stuff. And I don't want to get much into all the stuff in there, but thank you. And you are one of her attorneys, correct?
You're speaking to me, yes?
Yes, Jane.
Joan,
I am.
are you one of you are? And Ray, are you
Yes,
also
I
an
am.
attorney?
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me. And Joan, thank you for that excellent summary. So my name is Ray Mitchell, and by design, I am an attorney. But I joined Team Cindy not as her attorney, but really to be part of this amazing journey of Cindy, our American hero, standing up for fairness, candor, and access to justice. I've done work with Time's Up and the Legal Defense Fund on the Me Too movement. And I really believe that Cindy's journey is the beginning of closing the justice gap. Her experience covers so many things that are catastrophically failing in the civil judicial system that we couldn't even do justice in this small time we have with you today. But let me tell you why I joined Team Cindy. One, she is winning. Don't let anyone tell you that her 17-year journey of setbacks in the courts is a loss. The ability of a lay person in pro per to stand up to big banks, big law firms, and in different judicial system is a testament to her competitive excellence as an American hero. I'm here because Cindy represents that which we all want, which is the nerve to stand up for something important, regardless of the consequences.
I have known Cindy for quite a few years now, since the days of the foreclosure crisis. And I can tell you, her spirit, her will to fight, not only for herself, but for others, is so inspiring, because every time that I have needed her, you know, when we're doing fighting for other homeowners, I would call on her and she would show up, you know, and even though that she was going through a lot, Cindy will show up and fight for other people. We're gonna be able to hear her story, her full story, next week. So we're gonna be inviting the audience to join us next week, because we want to be able to bring Cindy together, all of you together, and we want to know exactly how all this happened. It is insanity, the things that she gone through, and there she is. So
There's our hero. Very late.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi,
We
Cindy.
just heard a little bit of background on your story. It's an incredibly shocking and appalling story. I'm so sorry that this happened to you, but I have to commend you for fighting for 17 years for what belongs to you and your right to be in your home. And we're very excited to have you on next week so we can hear the full story, hear what has happened, where you are now in all of this litigation. And is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience right now?
Yeah, I first wanted to just apologize for being late. We're having communication issues here as I'm in a hotel temporarily. And
Wow.
life is not easy being disposed from your home, because it destroys the ability to just function, to get, to a restroom, or to have showers and bathe and what have you. And I it's just something that you would never think that you'd have to live this type of lifestyle after having represented your country and sacrifice your childhood, and just representing this country. We're the United States of America. We're the lead example of the world. And to be able to have to come back home to be crucified and just ostracized with false statements and what have you, and then someone taking your home, it's something that no one could ever believe, because it's unreal. And there's constitutional rights in protecting your property, and we're not given those rights. We're just completely eliminated. And so next week, yeah, I guess we'll be going further into that, because it's something that really needs to be looked at, and policies need to be changed, because this is not the life that anyone should be living, Olympic or not.
I mean, there
Absolutely.
have been so many countless of families that have been wrongfully foreclosed, their property being taken away from them. They have not had a day in court, a fair day in court. The amount of money that the banks, the investors, the developers throw out there to take your home away is beyond belief. And I know this because I lost my home as well through a wrongful foreclosure, just like you. And Cindy, we are so excited to have you next week. We want to be able to hear from your attorneys and your team, actually, of the stuff that you guys put in together, and how the public will be able to help you and stand with you during these very difficult times.
I just want to thank you so much again for finding me, Carlos, and bringing me to the podcast, because it, we're starting to go into other seasons, and it's going to be really imperative because the winter's coming. And, I felt very ill just recently, and I don't know if it was COVID or not, but I was deathly ill. And luckily enough, I had people around me that came out and brought food and tried to get me better, because I didn't think I was going to make it, and I was too afraid to go to the hospital. And it's just it just breaks my heart, because I still go back and visit, like, the back of the Walmarts to see how many people are living back there, and if there are kids back there. It's sad. It's just so sad. They're just throwing us into the street like our lives don't matter. This is inhumane.
And Cindy, when you look at yourself, you are a national treasure, literally a national treasure. And you see how the system is so broken and is not fair, especially to people of color. Because let's face it, the people that loses the most when it comes to housing and they get evicted are people of color.
That's
And
correct.
it's a fact. You know, what are your thoughts when you see this, especially you being someone that represented this country?
I didn't want to believe that. I just strongly still don't want to believe it. But when it looks like a duck, it's walking like a duck, and it sounds like a duck. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I've been categorized and put in a situation where it's like, you're no better. Look at your skin. They close the door. They ignore the obvious situation, the obvious issues in cases. And the law is really clear when you read it. The rule law, the statutes, the case laws, and it should be followed and abide by. Okay, then if it's not, why is that? And then when you start looking around the room and you start to see the dynamics of what groups in race are sitting in the courtrooms, you know, it's pretty crystal clear. It's really sad, and you don't want to believe that, but it speaks for itself.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to having you on next week. We do have to wrap up this week's show, though. But thank you, and thank you to Ray Mitchell and Joan Jackson for also joining us and sharing your story. And I think next week is going to be a phenomenal show. And I'm really hoping. Go ahead, Carlos.
Right. You don't want to miss this next week, because I tell you, I know Cindy and I know the kind of work that she's done, but I also know her struggle. And this story, Cindy's story, is going to touch your heart, because there's many of you that are in her shoes and you just don't know it.
Yeah.
There's families out there that are struggling. You don't know which way is out. And Cindy's valor, courage will help you build your own courage to move forward, because together, people, together, we are going to be able to overcome this kind of struggles that we are facing, these mountains that oppresses our people. So I am very excited to have you guys next week. Cindy, thank you for your courage. Thank you for everything you've done for the United States, even though that the United States has not responded to you well.
Thank you so much, Carlos, and all the staff. And I especially want to send a thank you for my team. You know, I've been blessed to have this new wonderful team with Ray Mitchell and Joan Jackson and James Imperial. They've been absolutely wonderful. And this team is going to help with the timeline and kind of bring forward what we've actually seen and what the errors are, and try to, you know, get in there and make some change. So, you know, the battle's not over. Boots are on the ground, and we're going to barge forward. You know, there's only one way to go. That's up.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I'm going to pop all of you off and just leave Carlos and me on at the end for the last end of the show, just to have some final thoughts. But before I pop all of you off, are there any other final words that you or your team would like to share with our viewers?
By this time next week, Cindy's new webpage will be up, www.dignityforall.com. We are marshaling a collective defense, just as Carlos said, so that everybody can get to the truth and defend their right to homes and not being put in the street.
Thank you.
Wow.
All right. Thank you so much, Team Cindy Brown. Thank you, Cindy Brown, for joining us. We will see the three of you and others next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Okay, Carlos, I wanted to leave us on for the last moments of the show, just you and I, to just kind of have some thoughts on today's show, because we had quite a diverse group of people on. And I also wanted to, I told you I wanted to retract something I said last week about Jimmy Dore, because I want to be clear that I didn't know what he actually said at the protest. And now that I know, I disapprove. I don't think that is positive for the progressive movement. I think we really should not just curse explicitives at Bernie and the squad, because they are our only allies in Congress, and we do need to work with them even when we disagree with them. So I just want to make that clear, that I don't just outright support people like that. So anyway, but Carlos, what did you think the discussion today?
Wow, it was awesome today. We heard, of course, from Congressman Jimmy Gomez that as he joined the members of the squad out there protesting at the Capitol, you know, this is what we want to see in our representatives. We want to see them getting involved. We want to see them on the ground. We want to see them rolling up their sleeves, not for a photo op, but actually getting the work. But one thing that I know for sure, Margaret, is that, you know, and this is this is the mistake that all of us make, including myself. We tend to always, criticize without knowing all the facts. That's a danger for all of us because, we assume things, and then we create our ideals based on assumption. We need to know facts. We need to know things. We got to be able to work with people. Now, I know I get criticized because I work with people on the inside. I also work in the outside. That's just something that I have chosen to do because of the need. I don't love politics. I actually hate politics, but I do politics out of necessity for the issues that we're fighting for. I'm not here to judge anybody, so I'm not going to judge you if you choose not to work on the inside. But I got to tell you that even with Susie Shannon, her expertise when it comes to policy, is equal to none. She knows her stuff, and it's very important for us to be able to support her. And so many times people get criticized, Margaret, because they don't act as some people think they should be acting. We got to think outside the box, especially right now in the days that we live in. There's a lot of stuff coming down, a lot of stuff. We got to be on top of our game. We got to be on top of our organizing skills. We got to be on top of our unity, solidarity. We got to be on top of that. We cannot be fighting each other because it's hurting the movement. We need to focus. We need to pay attention. We need to act what we need to act, and we need to do it smartly. We got to be able to outthink, the enemy or those people that are bringing about the oppression to us. Those are my thoughts. We love you guys very much. Appreciate your support and continue to share the videos.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, Carlos. I mean, it's very easy to feel cynical, and I know, like myself, I also at times feel very cynical about the political situation because, like I said earlier, we don't have a lot of time left with regard to climate change. I mean, we will always continue to fight, but I mean, the worst of it is not that far away, and we want to protect as many people as possible. We want to prevent as many deaths as possible, prevent as much suffering as possible. And a lot of times when we don't see our politicians taking strong stands against these against the enemies of us, of our goals, those who want to stymie us, it's easy to just kind of lose hope. But I think that what I saw last week with Representative Cori Bush and others was very powerful, and I know that a lot of people online have been a little cynical about it, and that's why I asked the Representative Gomez to really give us a background about what was going on behind the scenes, because a lot of people just assumed that they waited, that even the squad waited until the last minute, but the reality, as he detailed, was much more complicated than that. They were actually fighting, with a bunch of different agencies, with the White House, trying to convince them. And when it got down to it, it was only really the squad plus some of the progressive members of caucus who signed on to that letter. He said there was only 8 people. So we really owe them a thank you for at least doing that much, because without them being in Congress, it's likely that this eviction moratorium would have just expired and there would have been nothing for people. And at least we got something out of this. And they realized that they needed to take an action outside of outside of legislation, right? They had to come out and sleep on the Capitol. And to me, I think that was also a sign that the squad is realizing that even though they have a small influence on the floor because they are freshmen, they are new to Congress, and there's a whole hierarchy that goes on there, political hierarchy, that they do have a lot of power outside as well. And I think they really, at this moment, they finally showed that they can use that power in a very constructive way.
Exactly.
And I thought what was amazing was, we had there was Ayanna Pressley, Representative Pressley, Representative Omar, Representative Bush, Representative Bowman, Tlaib, etc., Gomez, that they were out there coming out onto the steps. And on those first early days on that weekend, I think it was a weekend, while Bush was there holding space on the steps with activists, AOC was out doing a media blitz. And that, I think, was really powerful, because here they were plugging in what they had available to them. Her Representative Ocasio-Cortez knows that she can get on any network, right, any news station, because she'll bring in ratings. She's a star, and she used that to get this message across and to attack the more corporate Democrats, the more conservative Democrats, and to say, it's not just the Republicans, it's people within our own party that are stopping this.
Right.
And we really need to recognize that and give them credit for what they did, because that was very, very strong political move on their part. And I applaud them, and I really hope that they'll be able to do things like that again in the future, and really be able to get some more concessions and actions out of the White House when they can't do it on the floor.
Yeah, Margaret, I almost forgot, and this is really important because it's happening here in California, but there is the recall again.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the facts. If they recall Gavin Newsom, we're gonna end up with a Republican. So you might as well kiss goodbye all the stuff that we have worked on, including public banking and Medicare for all. That's never gonna happen. Et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I know that Gavin Newsom promised a lot of different things. Pandemic hit. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. The pandemic was very serious. We had a president that was so, I'm going to say, reckless when it came to that. California was targeted by him constantly. So there was a lot of stuff that Governor Gavin Newsom was not able to do because of a lot of other things. So I'm not trying to speak for him or anything, but I think that if we don't put in our sense in here and stand with the governor, we're going to end up with a Republican. We're going to end up with a talk show host. That's what he is. He's a talking head. Brainless. If you ever heard him, that's another Rush Limbaugh. Is that who we want running the state of California? So, look, people, we have a lot to think about, and I understand your feelings. I share the same feelings. I'm upset that the fact that he didn't bring about Medicare for all. We're still in the fight. We're advancing that forward. But there's a lot more to just that particular promise that he made. We've got to be able to think outside the box. We've got to be able to look at the big picture. And definitely, we cannot have a freaking Republican running California again.
No, not in the middle of a pandemic. I can speak from experience, having lived through 9 months of the pandemic in Georgia. You don't want a Republican leading your state, no matter how angry you feel at the Democrats. And we know that Gavin Newsom is not, a stellar progressive, and that he's a slick politician, and he's made some mistakes. But at the same time, the situation in Georgia is not what you want. You really don't want this, where they're last year the governor of Georgia sued the mayor of Atlanta for instituting a mask mandate. She did something. She acted on her own, Tisha Lance Bottoms, and she said, "Look, we're going to have a mask mandate here." And the governor, Brian Kemp, said, "No thanks. We're going to sue you." And in the end, it didn't work out for him. I think they had to settle out of court. But this is the kind of friction that you're going to have, and it's not what we need during a pandemic. It's much easier at this point, given the situation, to put pressure on a Democrat than on a lunatic, which unfortunately that's what a lot of these members of the Republican Party are. They're lunatics, and they're happy to see you die much more than the Democrats are. At least there's within the party, at least we have a few people we can work with, like Representative Gomez. Republicans, and especially the ones running right now they're all just crazy Trump types, and we don't need any more Trumps in office. So we have to, I think, unfortunately, we have to compromise a little bit on that regard just to maintain some sanity and to keep what we have going right now going until we get through this, and put pressure on the Democratic politicians to do more, because we can, and they should.
And just remember this, that it was Ronald Reagan, a Republican, that destroyed California. Reason why all this all over the place, because they took out all the safety nets that existed. They put out all those people that had that were being taken care of at the mental hospitals. They closed those mental hospitals. They threw everybody. They constantly cutting any kind of safety net that we try to put in place. If that's what we want for California, that's exactly what we're going to get. But I tell you, if you take a hard look at the list of Republicans running against the governor, it's a circus. If you
As all recalls are, they're always a circus.
it's a freaking circus. We got a whole bunch of Trumps, putting their names out there. A freaking radio host trying to run California, for crying out loud. I mean, if you buy into that, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and staying with us. We went a little bit over the hour, but I think it was such a great discussion, and we're so lucky to have Representative Gomez and Susie Shannon and Cindy Brown's team on to talk about all of these really important issues that touch all of our lives every single day, especially now during this extraordinary time with the pandemic and the economy not being what it should be for working class people. So we will be back next week, as always, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch us on the Bernie Sanders Brigade page. We also simulcast on YouTube at Insight. That's INSIGHT Out News, Insight Out News. And yeah, you can just join us here. We'll be here just having a good time talking about things that make us angry.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a nice
stay safe.
Weekend.
Yes, have a nice weekend. Stay safe. Wear a mask and get vaccinated if you haven't yet. So take care, everyone.